Billionaire's son ditches fiancée for stranger. Her revenge will leave you speechless. The courtroom was packed with tension. Every seat in the gallery was filled, the air thick with murmurs and the soft scratching of pens as journalists scribbled notes. At the defendant's table, Alex Montgomery, the son of billionaire real estate mogul Charles Montgomery, sat with his head bowed. His once confident demeanor was now replaced by a look of unease. His tailored suit and perfectly combed hair seemed out of place, almost mocking him in his current state. Across from him, Rachel sat poised and collected. She wore a sharp black suit, her hair pulled back in a way that exuded both elegance and determination. This was not the Rachel who had once clung to Alex's arm at glamorous parties, gazing at him with unwavering adoration. This Rachel was different, stronger, fiercer, and entirely in control. The judge's gavel slammed down, silencing the room. "We will now hear the final arguments," the judge announced, her voice stern and commanding. Alex shifted uncomfortably in his seat, stealing a glance at Rachel. Her expression didn't waver, and for a brief moment, he felt the full weight of the choices that had led him here. Months earlier, Alex Montgomery had been the epitome of privilege. He was charming, effortlessly handsome, and heir to one of the most influential real estate empires in the country. People gravitated toward him, not just because of his wealth, but because he had an air of magnetism that made him impossible to ignore. At his side was Rachel, his fiancée of 2 years. Rachel was everything Alex wasn't: grounded, hardworking, and unpretentious. She had grown up in a middle-class family, putting herself through college and building a respectable career in marketing. Alex loved her in his own way, but he often found himself questioning whether she truly fit into the glittering world he inhabited. "Rachel, you know I love you," Alex had said one evening as they sat in their penthouse apartment overlooking the city's skyline. The room was dimly lit, the flicker of candlelight reflecting in her eyes. She smiled softly, not noticing the hesitation in his tone. "I love you too," she replied, resting her head on his shoulder. For her, their love was enough to bridge the gap between their worlds. But for Alex, doubts lingered, gnawing at the edges of his mind. Those doubts solidified the night he met Vanessa. The charity gala was a spectacle of wealth and opulence. The ballroom was adorned with crystal chandeliers, and servers glided through the crowd with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Alex moved through the sea of guests effortlessly, his presence commanding attention wherever he went. Rachel, by his side, clung to his arm, though she felt out of place in the lavish setting. It was Vanessa who caught Alex's eye. She was stunning, with an aura of sophistication that seemed to rival even the grandeur of the room. Dressed in a shimmering silver gown, she exuded confidence and mystery, her every movement drawing glances from those around her. Their first conversation was innocent enough, an introduction facilitated by a mutual acquaintance. But as the evening wore on, Alex found himself captivated by her. Vanessa spoke of exotic travels, high-profile connections, and a lifestyle that seemed to align perfectly with his own ambitions. Rachel noticed the way Alex's attention lingered on Vanessa, but she dismissed it as a passing infatuation. She trusted him, believed in their love, and didn't see Vanessa as a threat. That trust, however, would soon be shattered. Over the following weeks, Alex began pulling away. He canceled dinners, ignored texts, and spent more time at work, though Rachel suspected it was something else. The final blow came on a quiet Sunday evening. Rachel had prepared dinner, her favorite playlist softly playing in the background. She had spent the day planning their wedding, excited to share her ideas with Alex. But when he walked through the door, his expression was distant, his movements tense. "Rachel, we need to talk," he said, his voice devoid of its usual warmth. Her heart sank. "What's wrong?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Alex sighed, running a hand through his hair. I don't think this is working." The words hit her like a blow. "What do you mean?" "We're engaged, Alex. We're planning a life together." He avoided her gaze. I don't think we're right for each other." "You're amazing, Rachel, but I don't think you fit into the world I'm trying to build." Tears welled in her eyes. "The world you're trying to build? Alex, we've been building this together." "I'm sorry," he said, his tone flat. "I've made up my mind." And just like that, he walked away, leaving Rachel to pick up the pieces of a life she had thought was solid and unbreakable. Rachel spent the next few weeks in a haze of heartbreak and confusion. She moved out of the penthouse and into her parents' modest home, where she spent her days trying to piece together what had gone wrong. Her mother tried to comfort her, while her best friend, Emily, urged her to forget Alex and focus on herself. "He's an idiot," Emily said bluntly one afternoon. "You're smart, beautiful, and hardworking. You don't need him." Rachel wanted to believe her, but the pain was still too raw. It wasn't just about losing Alex. It was about losing the future she had envisioned, the plans they had made together. But as the weeks turned into months, Rachel began to find herself again. She threw herself into her work, taking on new projects and rediscovering her passion for business. Slowly but surely, the pain began to fade, replaced by a sense of determination she hadn't felt in years. One evening, while organizing her belongings, Rachel stumbled upon a notebook filled with ideas for a startup she had dreamed of launching before she met Alex. The ideas were rough, the pages scattered with notes and sketches, but as she flipped through the notebook, a spark reignited within her. She decided to take a chance. Rachel stared at the notebook on her desk, its pages worn and filled with ideas she had once been passionate about but had long forgotten. She traced her fingers over a sketch of a logo, a symbol of what could have been, and felt a surge of energy she hadn't experienced in months. Alex might have broken her heart, but he hadn't broken her spirit. If anything, he had given her a reason to prove herself, not to him, but to herself. The next morning, Rachel got to work. She began researching the industry, updating her old ideas, and reaching out to contacts she had made over the years. Her concept was simple yet innovative, a platform that connected small businesses with marketing resources and tools to help them thrive in a competitive market. It was the kind of idea that could empower entrepreneurs like herself, people who had big dreams but limited resources. At first, progress was slow. Rachel worked out of her parents' dining room, juggling freelance projects to fund her startup while attending networking events to pitch her idea. She faced countless rejections, but each no only fueled her determination. She spent late nights refining her business plan and early mornings reaching out to potential investors. Then, one day, her persistence paid off. A local investor, impressed by her passion and vision, agreed to fund her initial launch. It wasn't much, but it was enough to get started. As Rachel's startup began to grow, so did her confidence. She moved into a small office space, hired a few employees, and launched the platform with a modest but impactful marketing campaign. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Small business owners praised the platform for its accessibility and effectiveness, and word of mouth quickly spread. Rachel's name began to appear in local business publications, her story of resilience and innovation inspiring others. She received invitations to speak at events, where she shared her journey of turning heartbreak into opportunity. For the first time in a long time, she felt truly empowered. Meanwhile, Alex's life was taking a very different turn. Alex's relationship with Vanessa had started as a whirlwind romance, filled with glamour and excitement. She was everything he thought he wanted: charming, sophisticated, and effortlessly stylish. But as the months passed, the cracks in their relationship began to show. Vanessa's charm revealed itself to be shallow, her sophistication masking a manipulative streak that Alex hadn't anticipated. She had a taste for extravagance that even his wealth struggled to keep up with, and her constant need for attention left him feeling drained. Their once enchanting conversations turned into arguments, each one chipping away at the allure she had held over him. At the same time, Alex's professional life was faltering. His father, Charles Montgomery, had started to lose patience with Alex's lack of focus and poor decision-making. Alex's ventures were struggling, and his reputation in the business world was beginning to tarnish. During a tense dinner meeting, Charles didn't mince words. "Alex, you're squandering the opportunities I've given you," he said, his tone sharp. "You need to get your act together, or you'll have nothing left." Alex nodded, but the words stung. For the first time, he began to question whether he had made a mistake, not just professionally, but personally. As Rachel's platform gained momentum, she started receiving attention from larger investors and industry leaders. Her growth was exponential, her vision resonating with businesses across the country. But what Rachel didn't realize was that her success was beginning to overlap with Alex's world. One morning, Rachel's assistant, Mia, entered her office with a stack of documents. "We've got a new partnership opportunity," Mia said, handing Rachel the papers. "It's with a company that competes directly with Montgomery Enterprises." Rachel froze. The name Montgomery Enterprises leapt off the page, a stark reminder of the man who had dismissed her. For a moment, she considered walking away from the deal. But then she remembered the pain Alex had caused, the way he had belittled her dreams. She wasn't that woman anymore. "Let's move forward," Rachel said firmly. "I want this partnership." The collaboration was a game changer. Rachel's platform gained even more traction, solidifying her as a rising star in the industry. Meanwhile, Alex began to feel the pressure as his family's company faced increased competition. During a meeting with his father, the tension boiled over. "This is unacceptable, Alex," Charles said, slamming a report onto the table. "Our competitors are eating into our market share, and you're sitting here doing nothing about it." Alex flipped through the report, his stomach sinking as he saw Rachel's name on nearly every page. "Rachel Carter," he muttered, disbelief etched across his face. "Yes, Rachel Carter," Charles snapped. "She's built something remarkable, and it's hurting us. You'd better figure out how to deal with this, Alex." For the first time, Alex felt a pang of regret, not just for losing Rachel, but for underestimating her. She had become everything he had once dismissed her as incapable of being, and was now threatening everything he had worked for. Rachel's revenge wasn't about malice. She wasn't interested in tearing Alex down for the sake of it. Her success was about proving to herself, and to anyone who had ever doubted her, that she was capable of greatness. But as her name continued to dominate headlines, Alex couldn't ignore the impact she was having on his life. Desperate, Alex decided to reach out to Rachel. He sent her an email, carefully crafting his words to appear sincere. "Rachel, I'm so proud of what you've accomplished. I'd love to catch up and discuss opportunities for collaboration." When Rachel saw the email, she couldn't help but laugh. She could see through his words, recognizing them as an attempt to regain control. But instead of ignoring him, she decided to respond. "Alex," she wrote, "I appreciate the kind words. Unfortunately, I'm very busy at the moment. Best of luck with your endeavors." Rachel's decision to dismiss Alex's overtures was liberating. For so long, she had been defined by her relationship with him, first as his fiancée, then as the woman he left behind. Now she was her own person, standing tall in the world she had built. But Alex wasn't ready to give up. His desperation grew as his personal and professional life continued to unravel. Vanessa had left him, his business ventures were failing, and his father's disappointment loomed over him like a dark cloud. He decided to take drastic action, using insider connections to sabotage one of Rachel's partnerships. What Alex didn't anticipate was Rachel's resilience. When her team discovered the sabotage, they gathered evidence and prepared to take legal action. Rachel's name carried weight now, and she wasn't about to let Alex's underhanded tactics go unanswered. Rachel stared at the evidence her legal team had gathered, her jaw tightening with each passing moment. The emails, financial records, and insider communications painted a clear picture. Alex had orchestrated a deliberate attempt to sabotage her partnership. It was petty, desperate, and infuriatingly predictable. Mia, sitting across from her, watched Rachel's expression carefully. "What do you want to do about this?" she asked. Rachel took a deep breath, closing the file. "We're not going to let this slide," she said, her voice firm. "It's time Alex learns that there are consequences for his actions." The decision was made. They would pursue legal action against Alex and his associates. The news broke quickly, sending shockwaves through the business world. Headlines like "Rising Star Rachel Carter takes on billionaire heir Alex Montgomery in court" dominated the media, and public opinion overwhelmingly sided with Rachel. For Alex, the fallout was immediate. His father, Charles Montgomery, was livid. "What were you thinking?" Charles demanded during a tense boardroom meeting. "You've not only jeopardized our reputation but also put the entire company at risk." "I was trying to protect our interests," Alex argued weakly, though he knew the excuse sounded hollow. "Protecting our interests?" Charles shot back, his voice icy. "You've done nothing but damage them. And now, thanks to your short-sightedness, we're going to have to fight this in court." As the court date approached, Rachel prepared meticulously. Her legal team was thorough, leaving no stone unturned in their investigation. But Rachel wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for every entrepreneur who had been underestimated, dismissed, or undermined by those in power. The day of the trial arrived, and the courtroom was packed. Journalists, business insiders, and curious onlookers filled the gallery, eager to witness the showdown between the scrappy entrepreneur and the billionaire heir. Rachel walked in with her head held high, exuding confidence and grace. Alex, by contrast, looked tense and uncharacteristically disheveled. The proceedings were intense. Rachel's lawyers presented compelling evidence, detailing how Alex had used his connections to block her from securing critical resources and attempting to discredit her brand. Each revelation was met with murmurs from the audience, and Alex's discomfort grew with every passing moment. When it was Alex's turn to testify, he struggled to maintain his composure. The cross-examination was brutal, exposing his reckless behavior and lack of judgment. His attempts to shift blame only made things worse, painting him as entitled and out of touch. Rachel, meanwhile, remained composed and articulate as she testified. She spoke not only about the sabotage but also about her journey, how she had built her business from the ground up, overcoming obstacles and staying true to her vision. Her words resonated deeply, earning her admiration from both the audience and the judge. The trial lasted several days, each session more damning for Alex than the last. On the final day, as the judge prepared to deliver the verdict, the tension in the room was palpable. Rachel sat calmly, her confidence unwavering. Alex, however, was visibly anxious, his hands fidgeting under the table. The court finds the defendant, Alex Montgomery, guilty of corporate sabotage and interference, the judge declared, her voice ringing through the courtroom. In addition to financial penalties, Mr. Montgomery will be required to issue a public apology to Ms. Carter and her company. Rachel's legal team erupted in quiet celebration, while Alex sank back in his seat, his face pale. The media captured every moment, from the gavel's final slam to Rachel's composed exit from the courtroom. Cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions, but Rachel simply smiled and walked away, leaving Alex to face the fallout of his actions. In the weeks following the trial, Rachel's success reached new heights. The publicity from the case had only bolstered her reputation, attracting more clients and investors to her platform. She used the momentum to expand her business, launching new initiatives and partnerships that further solidified her status as a leader in the industry. But Rachel's triumph wasn't just about professional success, it was about reclaiming her narrative. For so long, she had been defined by her relationship with Alex, but now she was defined by her resilience, her vision, and her ability to overcome adversity. Meanwhile, Alex's life continued to unravel. The trial had tarnished his reputation, and his father, fed up with his repeated failures, began distancing himself from Alex both personally and professionally. Vanessa, sensing the decline in Alex's status, had already moved on, leaving him isolated and struggling to rebuild his life. One evening, as Rachel walked through her bustling office, she paused to take it all in. The hum of activity, the energy of her team, the sense of purpose that filled the space. It was everything she had dreamed of and more. She had built this from the ground up, not as a reaction to Alex, but as a testament to her own strength and determination. Later, she sat at her desk, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. She thought about the heartbreak, the doubts, and the challenges she had faced. And she thought about Alex, not with bitterness, but with a sense of clarity. Rachel didn't need revenge to feel whole. Her success was her revenge, and it was more than enough. Weeks after the trial, Rachel's life was a whirlwind of opportunities. Her platform had gained nationwide recognition, and her inbox was flooded with invitations for interviews, collaborations, and speaking engagements. Each time she stepped into a new room or met a new partner, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had faced down giants and emerged victorious. But Rachel wasn't resting on her laurels. The victory in court was only one step in a larger journey. She knew the business world could be ruthless, and she was determined to stay ahead. Her office was abuzz with energy as her team worked tirelessly to launch new features and expand into international markets. "Rachel, you have a call waiting from a major investor," Mia said, peeking into her office. Rachel looked up from her desk, her eyes lighting up. "Which one?" Mia smirked. "It's the CEO of Global Horizons. He wants to schedule a meeting to discuss funding a major expansion." Rachel smiled. Global Horizons was one of the largest venture capital firms in the world, and their interest in her platform was a testament to how far she had come. "Set it up for next week," she said, leaning back in her chair. "Let's make sure we're prepared." Across town, Alex's life was a stark contrast to Rachel's rise. His father had stripped him of key responsibilities within Montgomery Enterprises, leaving Alex with a diminished role that felt more symbolic than substantial. His former friends, who had once flocked to him for his wealth and influence, had all but disappeared. Alone in his apartment, Alex stared at the growing pile of unpaid bills on his desk, the reality of his situation sinking in. For the first time, he began to question the choices that had led him here. He thought about Rachel, about the love they had once shared, and how he had thrown it away in pursuit of superficial desires. Seeing her succeed in court had been a painful reminder of everything he had lost, and though he hated to admit it, he couldn't help but feel a sense of admiration for her resilience. Determined to turn his life around, Alex decided to confront his mistakes. He reached out to a former mentor for advice, swallowing his pride as he asked for guidance. "I need to rebuild," he said, his voice filled with a mix of desperation and resolve. "I've made so many mistakes, but I want to do better." The mentor nodded thoughtfully. "The first step is taking responsibility, Alex. You need to own your actions and focus on what really matters. Success isn't about money or status. It's about the impact you have on others." As Alex worked on rebuilding his life, Rachel's expansion plans were in full swing. The partnership with Global Horizons had opened doors she hadn't thought possible, allowing her to scale her platform to a global audience. Her team celebrated each milestone with enthusiasm, their belief in Rachel's vision fueling their efforts. One day, as Rachel reviewed plans for a new initiative, she received an unexpected email. It was from Alex. The subject line read, "An apology I owe you." Rachel hesitated before opening it, unsure of what to expect. The email was short but heartfelt. "Rachel, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need to say this. I'm sorry for everything I put you through. I was selfish, short-sighted, and wrong in so many ways. Watching you succeed has been humbling, and I realize now just how much I underestimated you, not just as a person, but as a partner. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I regret my actions deeply. Alex." Rachel stared at the screen, her emotions a mix of surprise, anger, and something she couldn't quite name. She thought about deleting the email, but something stopped her. Instead, she closed her laptop, deciding to leave the message unanswered for now. The following weeks were busy, but Alex's email lingered in Rachel's mind. She didn't need his apology to validate her journey. She had moved beyond that, but she couldn't deny that his words carried a weight she hadn't expected. One evening, during a mentorship session with young entrepreneurs, Rachel found herself reflecting on her own journey. She shared her story candidly, from the heartbreak of losing Alex to the determination that had fueled her success. "Pain can either break you or build you," she said. "It's up to you to decide which one it will be." Her words resonated deeply with the group, and Rachel felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was why she had built her platform, not just to prove herself, but to empower others to overcome their own challenges. Meanwhile, Alex continued to make small but meaningful changes in his life. He started volunteering at a nonprofit organization that supported underprivileged youth, finding fulfillment in helping others. Though his path was far from easy, he felt a sense of clarity he hadn't experienced in years. One day, while mentoring a young entrepreneur, Alex heard the familiar name, Rachel Carter. The entrepreneur spoke of her platform with admiration, describing how it had helped him launch his own business. Alex listened intently, a bittersweet smile tugging at his lips. "She's amazing," the entrepreneur said. "Her story is so inspiring. I hope to meet her one day." Alex nodded. "She is amazing," he said quietly. "You're lucky to have her as a role model." Rachel's mentorship program had become one of the most rewarding aspects of her life. Seeing young entrepreneurs thrive and knowing she had a hand in their success filled her with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt even during the courtroom victory. Her office walls were now lined with photos of mints holding awards, smiling at product launches, or cutting ribbons at their first storefront openings. These were her trophies, not material possessions, but proof of the lives she had helped transform. One of her mints, Marcus, had been making significant strides with his business. At a team meeting, he approached Rachel with a nervous energy. "Ms. Carter, I just wanted to say thank you," he began. "Your platform has changed everything for me. I've been able to secure funding, hire a team, and even land my first big client." Rachel smiled warmly. "I'm proud of you, Marcus. You've done the work. You deserve this success." Marcus hesitated for a moment before adding, "There's actually one more thing. I've been invited to pitch at the National Entrepreneurship Conference, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to attend as my guest." Rachel's eyes lit up. "Of course. I wouldn't miss it for the world." Meanwhile, Alex's path to redemption was far from smooth. His volunteering work at the nonprofit had given him a new perspective, but rebuilding his professional reputation was proving to be a challenge. The name Alex Montgomery no longer carried the weight it once did, and the stigma of the trial lingered like a shadow. One afternoon, as Alex sorted through a stack of resumes for a small consultancy project he had managed to secure, his phone buzzed with a notification. It was an article from a business journal, highlighting Rachel's latest initiative, an accelerator program for minority-owned businesses. The headline read, "Rachel Carter continues to empower the underdog, a visionary leader transforming industries." Alex stared at the screen, a pang of regret twisting in his chest. Rachel's success was undeniable, and though he had reached out to apologize, he knew there was no undoing the damage he had caused. Still, he couldn't help but admire her from afar, marveling at how she had turned her pain into power. The National Entrepreneurship Conference was a grand affair, held in a sleek convention center, buzzing with energy and ambition. Rachel arrived with Marcus, guiding him through the sea of attendees as they prepared for his pitch. The event featured industry leaders, investors, and journalists, all eager to discover the next big thing. As Marcus stepped onto the stage to present his business, Rachel watched from the audience with pride. His pitch was polished and passionate, showcasing the grit and determination that had brought him this far. The crowd erupted into applause as he finished, and Rachel felt a swell of emotion. During a networking session afterward, Rachel mingled with other attendees, answering questions about her platform and sharing her insights. It was during this time that she spotted Alex in the crowd. He was standing near a booth, speaking with a group of young entrepreneurs. His demeanor was quieter than she remembered, less commanding and more introspective. He seemed to genuinely engage with the group, offering advice and encouragement without the air of arrogance he had once carried. Rachel hesitated, unsure if she should approach him. But before she could decide, Alex looked up and their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them moved, the noise of the conference fading into the background. Then Alex nodded slightly, a silent acknowledgement of her presence. Rachel returned the nod, a small smile tugging at her lips. She turned back to her conversation, letting the moment pass without further interaction. Later that evening, as Rachel sat in her hotel room reviewing notes from the day, she found herself reflecting on Alex. He seemed different. The Alex she had known would have dominated the room, flaunting his connections and status. But this Alex was subdued, almost humbled. She wondered if his apology had been genuine after all, or if he was simply trying to rebuild his image. Shaking her head, Rachel pushed the thoughts aside. She had moved past Alex, and her focus was on the future, on her business, her mints, and the impact she wanted to create. The following week, Rachel received a letter in the mail. It was from the nonprofit where Alex had been volunteering. The letter thanked her for her contributions to the entrepreneurship community and extended an invitation to speak at one of their events. At the bottom, in small handwriting, was a note. It would mean a lot to the people here, especially me. Alec. Rachel's first instinct was to decline. But as she reread the letter, she considered the possibility that Alex's intentions might be genuine. After all, wasn't the purpose of her work to inspire change and growth, even in those she had once written off? She decided to attend. The event was small but meaningful, held in a community center with a warm, welcoming atmosphere. Rachel's speech focused on the power of resilience, sharing stories of entrepreneurs who had overcome incredible odds to achieve their dreams. The audience listened intently, their expressions reflecting hope and determination. Afterward, Alex approached her, his posture hesitant but sincere. "Rachel," he began, "thank you for coming. Your speech was incredible." Rachel studied him for a moment before replying. "You've been working here?" Alex nodded. "It's been eye-opening. Helping these young entrepreneurs has reminded me of what really matters." Rachel crossed her arms, her tone measured. "And what do you think that is?" "Impact," Alex said quietly. "Making a difference, no matter how small. I've spent so much of my life chasing the wrong things. I see that now." There was a pause as Rachel considered his words. She could sense the weight of his regret, but she wasn't ready to let her guard down completely. "Actions speak louder than words, Alex," she said finally. "If you're serious about changing, show it." Alex nodded, his expression resolute. "I will." Over the next few weeks, Rachel's work with the Accelerator program picked up pace. Her team was onboarding a new cohort of entrepreneurs, each bringing unique ideas and boundless energy. The program had grown beyond her initial vision, with industry leaders recognizing it as a game-changer for underrepresented business owners. During a feedback session with the latest group of participants, Rachel heard stories that reminded her why she had started this journey. One mentee spoke about struggling to secure funding because of her background, while another described being dismissed by potential partners who doubted his abilities. Rachel listened intently, offering encouragement and sharing her own experiences of overcoming doubt and rejection. "You're here because you've earned it," she said, her voice steady. "And no one can take that away from you. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right." Meanwhile, Alex was steadily rebuilding his life, though the process was anything but easy. His volunteer work had become a cornerstone of his transformation, grounding him in a way he hadn't experienced before. For the first time, he was surrounded by people who weren't interested in his name or wealth. They cared about his contributions and his sincerity. One afternoon, during a mentorship session at the nonprofit, Alex sat with a group of young entrepreneurs discussing their challenges. One participant, a teenager named Darius, shared his struggles with self-doubt. "I don't think I'm cut out for this," Darius admitted, staring at the table. "Every time I try, I feel like I'm not good enough." Alex leaned forward, his tone gentle but firm. "I know what that feels like," he said. "I've been there, thinking I wasn't enough, letting fear hold me back. But the truth is, no one starts out knowing everything. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep trying." Darius looked up, surprised. "Even someone like you? Especially someone like me," Alex said, small smile tugging at his lips. "Mistakes don't define you. What you do next does." The conversation stuck with Alex long after the session ended. For the first time, he felt like he was making a real difference, even if it was on a smaller scale than he was used to. The feeling was humbling and fulfilling in ways he hadn't expected. Rachel, on the other hand, was preparing for a pivotal moment in her career. She had been invited to present at a global entrepreneurship summit, where she would share her insights on empowering marginalized communities through innovation. The invitation was a testament to her impact, and she knew it was an opportunity to expand her reach even further. In the days leading up to the event, Rachel worked tirelessly on her presentation, crafting a narrative that blended her personal story with actionable strategies for creating systemic change. Her team rallied around her, offering feedback and encouragement as she refined every detail. The summit itself was a dazzling affair, held in a sprawling convention center filled with some of the brightest minds in business and innovation. As Rachel took the stage, the room fell silent, all eyes on her. She began by sharing her journey, the heartbreak, the doubts, and the resilience that had brought her to this moment. She spoke about the importance of creating opportunities for those who have been overlooked, emphasizing the need for equity and inclusion in every industry. "Success isn't about where you start," Rachel said, her voice ringing with conviction. "It's about where you choose to go and how you bring others along with you." The audience erupted into applause as she finished, her words resonating deeply with everyone in the room. Rachel felt a wave of gratitude as she stepped off the stage, knowing she had made an impact. In the audience, Alex watched quietly, his heart heavy with a mix of emotions. He hadn't planned to attend the summit, but his work at the nonprofit had led to an invitation, and he had decided to see Rachel's presentation for himself. Her words had hit him harder than he expected, reminding him of the person she had always been, strong, compassionate, and determined. After the event, Alex debated whether to approach her. He knew Rachel didn't owe him anything, and he didn't want to disrupt her moment of triumph. But as she mingled with the crowd, their eyes met once again. This time, Alex took a deep breath and walked over. "Rachel," he said, his voice steady. "That was incredible." Rachel raised an eyebrow, a hint of amusement in her expression. "I didn't expect to see you here. I wasn't sure I should come," Alex admitted. "But I'm glad I did. You've built something extraordinary." "Thank you," Rachel said simply, her tone neutral. "I've worked hard for it." Alex hesitated before continuing. "I know I've said this before, but I really am sorry for everything. Seeing what you've accomplished has been humbling, to say the least." Rachel studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. "I appreciate the apology, Alex. But what matters most is what you do from here." "I know," he said earnestly, "and I'm trying. I want to be better, not just for myself, but for the people I can help along the way." Rachel nodded, her gaze softening slightly. "Good. Keep trying." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Alex to reflect on her words. He didn't expect forgiveness, but he felt a sense of closure he hadn't thought possible. For the first time, he saw a path forward, one that wasn't about reclaiming his old life, but about building something new. In the weeks following the summit, Rachel's influence continued to grow. Her platform had reached an international audience, and her work was being recognized by global organizations as a model for empowering marginalized entrepreneurs. The momentum was exhilarating, but Rachel never allowed herself to forget the principles that had guided her from the start: hard work, empathy, and the power of resilience. One afternoon, Rachel found herself in a meeting with her leadership team. The agenda was packed with plans for scaling operations, expanding the accelerator program, and forging partnerships in emerging markets. As her team discussed logistics, Rachel's mind wandered to a handwritten thank you letter she had received the day before. The letter was from Darius, a young mentee at the nonprofit where Alex volunteered. In it, Darius described how Rachel's story had inspired him to believe in himself, and how her platform had given him the tools to launch his own business. The words were raw and heartfelt, a reminder of why Rachel had chosen this path. "Rachel." Mia's voice broke through her thoughts. "What do you think about the timeline for the new initiative?" Rachel smiled, bringing herself back to the room. "Let's move forward with it," she said. "But let's also make sure we prioritize mentoring opportunities. That's where the real impact happens." The team nodded, jotting down notes as the meeting continued. Meanwhile, Alex was taking small but meaningful steps to rebuild his life. He had started a consulting business, offering guidance to startups and small businesses. Unlike his previous ventures, this one wasn't about profit or prestige. It was about using his experience to help others succeed. One of his first clients was a single mother with a dream of opening a bakery. She had been turned away by banks and investors, struggling to secure the funding she needed. Alex worked closely with her, helping her refine her business plan, identify potential investors, and navigate the complexities of the startup world. When her bakery finally opened, Alex attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Watching her beam with pride as she welcomed her first customers, Alex felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't experienced in years. This was the kind of success that mattered, not numbers on a balance sheet, but the tangible difference he could make in someone's life. Rachel's path and Alex's path crossed again in the most unexpected way. Rachel's accelerator program was hosting a community showcase, inviting alumni and local entrepreneurs to present their work to investors, mentors, and the public. The event was bustling with energy, the air filled with conversations, laughter, and the hum of possibility. Rachel moved through the crowd, stopping to speak with participants and offering words of encouragement. She was in her element, her presence magnetic and inspiring. As she approached one of the booths, she froze for a moment, spotting a familiar figure across the room. Alex was standing beside a young entrepreneur, gesturing animatedly as he explained something. The entrepreneur nodded enthusiastically, jotting down notes as Alex spoke. He looked different now, calmer, more grounded, and far removed from the entitled man she had once known. Rachel debated whether to approach him, but decided against it. She had no desire to revisit the past, especially not when she was surrounded by the future she had worked so hard to create. Instead, she focused on the entrepreneurs who had come to the showcase, ensuring they felt supported and seen. Later that evening, as the event wound down, Rachel found herself alone in the main hall, tidying up some materials left behind. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to see Alex. "Still working hard, I see," he said, small smile on his face. "Always," Rachel replied, her tone even. Alex stepped closer, holding up a flyer from one of the booths. "This is impressive," he said. "What you've built here, it's more than a business. It's a movement." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "That's the idea?" There was a moment of silence as Alex considered his next words. "Rachel, I know I don't have a right to ask for anything, but I wanted to say thank you." "For what?" she asked, genuinely curious. "For being the person I wasn't brave enough to be," he said. "You've shown me what it means to lead with purpose. And you've made me realize how much I have to learn." Rachel studied him, her expression unreadable. Finally, she nodded. "I'm glad you found your way, Alex. But remember, the work is never finished." Alex smiled faintly. "I'll keep that in mind." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Rachel standing alone in the quiet hall. She watched him go, a mixture of emotions swirling within her. She didn't know if Alex's transformation was permanent, but she hoped it was. Everyone deserved a chance to grow, even those who had once hurt her. Rachel's story continued to unfold, her influence expanding, and her mission reaching new heights. Alex's journey, though quieter, was equally meaningful. The two would occasionally cross paths at events or through mutual connections, their interactions cordial but distant. And while their lives had diverged, They shared a silent understanding, a recognition of the ways they had shaped each other's paths for better or worse. Rachel had found her strength, and Alex had found his humility. Together, they had become a testament to the power of change, proving that even the most painful endings could lead to new beginnings. Years passed, and Rachel's legacy continued to grow. Her accelerator program expanded globally, partnering with organizations in underserved regions to provide mentorship and funding to entrepreneurs who might never have had the chance to succeed. Her name became synonymous with empowerment, her story a beacon for those facing adversity. At an international summit in New York City, Rachel stood before a crowd of thousands, delivering a keynote speech. The room was silent as she spoke, her words resonating deeply with the audience. "I was once told I wasn't enough," she began, her voice steady. "Not smart enough, not polished enough, not worthy enough to belong in the spaces I dreamed of. But I learned that no one else gets to define your worth. That's a decision only you can make." The audience erupted into applause, and Rachel smiled, her heart full. She looked out over the sea of faces, spotting familiar ones among the crowd, former mints, partners, and supporters who had walked parts of this journey with her. It was a moment of triumph, but also of gratitude. Meanwhile, Alex had found his footing in a quieter way. His consulting business had grown steadily, focusing on helping small businesses navigate the challenges of entrepreneurship. He had become a respected figure in his own right, not for his wealth or connections, but for the genuine impact he made in people's lives. One day, Alex received an invitation to an event hosted by Rachel's accelerator program. It was a reunion of sorts, bringing together alumni and supporters to celebrate the program's achievements. Alex hesitated at first, unsure if he should attend, but ultimately decided to go. The event was held in a stunning venue overlooking the city skyline. The room buzzed with energy as attendees shared stories of their successes and challenges. Alex moved through the crowd, taking in the atmosphere and marveling at what Rachel had built. He spotted her across the room, speaking animatedly with a group of entrepreneurs. She looked as confident and radiant as ever, her presence commanding yet approachable. For a moment, Alex considered leaving without speaking to her. But then Rachel turned, her eyes meeting his, and she smiled. They found themselves standing together near the edge of the room, the city lights twinkling behind them. "Alex," Rachel said, her tone warm but composed. "It's been a while." "It has," Alex replied. Everything you've done here, it's incredible." "Thank you," Rachel said. "It's been a lot of hard work, but it's worth it." Alex nodded, his gaze thoughtful. "I've been thinking a lot about the past," he said. "About the mistakes I made and the people I hurt. You didn't deserve what I did to you, Rachel, and I'll always regret that." Rachel studied him for a moment before responding. "We can't change the past, Alex, but we can learn from it. And from what I've seen, you've done that." "I'm trying," Alex said earnestly. "Every day." Rachel smiled faintly. "That's all any of us can do." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared history lingering between them. Then Rachel extended her hand. "Good luck, Alex," she said. Alex shook her hand, his grip firm but respectful. "Good luck, Rachel." As the night went on, Rachel mingled with the attendees, her focus returning to the entrepreneurs and their stories. She didn't dwell on the conversation with Alex. It was simply a chapter in a much larger story, her story. She had built something extraordinary, not out of revenge, but out of a desire to create, to uplift, and to empower. And as she walked through the room, surrounded by the people she had inspired, Rachel felt a profound sense of peace. She had found her purpose, her strength, and her voice. The pain of the past no longer defined her. It had shaped her, yes, but it no longer held her. For Alex, the event marked a moment of closure. He left feeling both humbled and hopeful, knowing that while he couldn't undo his past mistakes, he could continue working toward a better future. He had found a path that brought meaning to his life, and for the first time in years, he felt at peace. The story of Rachel and Alex wasn't about reconciliation. It was about transformation, about two people who had once been intertwined, each finding their own way to grow and thrive. Rachel became a symbol of resilience and empowerment, while Alex learned the value of humility and genuine connection. Their paths may have diverged, but their journeys served as a reminder. Even in the face of heartbreak and betrayal, there is always the possibility of growth, the promise of new beginnings, and the power to define your own destiny.